Hi, I'm Stephen Ham from Archery Supplies, and today we're going to look at the Oneida Phoenix and we're going to rebuild on it. So this is an Oneida Phoenix, what it looks like when it's all together. Now this one's been custom done up by the client, so he's put a custom wood grip on it. He's put custom cables from G-strings, that's what we're going to fit to the new bow. Now I always rave about customer service because customer service to me is really important, because when a person breaks their bow, I need help from the manufacturer. I can't fix it without the manufacturer. So the manufacturer to me is critical. So in January, a customer returned this bow to me. Now, we're in May now, and so he returns the bow to me and it's in this state here. So I'm going to zoom up so you can see. So the cable here is thing. These two cams spin independently. That obviously shouldn't occur. The timing cable's all loose. Now I don't have a string, so anyway, the customer returns the bow to me, so I contact Oneida. Now I've sold, let's say I've sold 12 Oneidas in the past, I don't know, 6 months, which is okay for a $2,000 bow. So I contact Oneida and I say, look, the bow, I've got a customer who the bow's blown up and it's done this with the cables. Can you please tell me why it's done it and help me to fix this bow? So I need some cables to fix this bow, but I need to know why it happened, so I've got a better understanding. Now normally when I see a compound bow broken, it's generally broken through derailing, dry firing. So I've got this bow. So Oneida, the lady I talked to at Oneida, she then sends me to the warranty area, the tech guy. So I send him 3 pictures of this bow and I never hear back. So I order replacement strings and cables, I don't hear back. Now they don't want to, when I say they don't want to deal with me, they don't want to deal with Australia because the postage out to Australia is a pain in the butt. So basically I'm left with a $2,000 bow in parts. And I don't know why it's happened, right? So anyway, I order replacement cables from a company called G-strings. They do these colored little cables here, and I got some standard cables so I can make up the Oneidas if they break. So since January, so the customer's bow, he said to me when he broke it, I said, what were you doing? He said, I was just shooting it at blue. Like, you can't derail this bow. All you can do is really dry fire it. And I don't imagine it would have this impact. But anyway. So he said, oh, I suppose it's going to take forever to have it fixed. And I'm like, I don't know, because I haven't had a Oneida break before. Anyway, I got no response from Oneida after a week. So I gave him a new Oneida. I only had one left. I gave him the last one I had. So I'm still left with this broken Oneida. Now, I just want to put that in perspective. This bow's $2,000. Now on a retail shop, you don't make a lot of money on a bow. Now you probably think I make $1,000 on each bow. I don't. So for the 12 Oneidas I sold, this one bow, which is in bits, means I've lost money on those 12 bows. So right now I'm running a dead loss with Oneida. So anything else that fails with Oneida, I'm at a dead loss. So the bow's in bits. Anyway, last week a guy comes in with an Oneida. So one of the 12 I've sold, and it's got this same problem with the cams moving, but the bow wasn't in bits. The cables weren't weren't snapped like this, so it wasn't as extreme as this. Now the bow was lighter in poundage. The bow was a 50-pound bow. His bow is meant to be a 55-pound bow. I think I could only get 48 out of it. This is a 70-pound bow, so obviously a 70-pound bow is going to create a more extreme reaction than his. So we're going to go through how I fixed this bow, and we're going to fix it in front of the camera, and yeah, we're going to try and fix it. I'm going to show you what went wrong with the Oneida, and hopefully it'll help you, because I was just left in the dark. I probably worked on that the last guy's bow for 2 hours to fix it. So we're going to pull this apart and I'm going to show you how it works and hopefully fix the Oneida. So the first thing I'm going to show you is limbs are in limb pockets. So this is a machine limb pocket here, and the limbs, now something's happened here. You can see the limbs slip forward in the limb pocket. Now I don't know why that's happened, but I know it's happened at top and bottom. So the first thing I've got to do is I've got to wind the bow down. So I just grab an Allen key and I'm going to wind this bow down. Now the timing cables, I'm first off going to loosen this little bolt here, the little bolt on the side. Now that's your timing cable bolt, which should be loose if you're changing the poundage on the bow. And you can see these timing cables are currently off, and I'm going to show you how to fix all that. So first off, I'm going to loosen that cable. Not that it really matters because this whole bow's in bits. And like, if you don't want to watch an Oneida be rebuilt, that's cool. But if you've got an Oneida and this happens to you, this is probably worth noting. Now you can see up the top here, the cable's actually slid. So this is a Yoke system, and it uses a little bolt to keep this in place. Now that's slipped. So if this happens to you, you're going to have to reposition that cable. So I'm just going to wind this bow down. Now in fact, I'm going to take these limbs off this bow to make my life easier. One thing about an Oneida is, the one thing I love about an Oneida bows, or lever bows, is you don't need a bow press to work on it. You can see the limbs just clip back into place, and that's kind of easy. So as an archery shop owner, I really want to watch what happens. So I'm going to zoom down on this bow now so you can watch me working on the bow. And I'm sorry if it takes forever, but if you want to learn how to work on these bows, I couldn't find anything to explain how to work on them. So let's try. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is take off these Yoke cables here. So they just unclip, and they unclip there. Now I'm going to replace these with the G-string cables. So that's not really an issue for me. Boy, that one really got hacked a bit. Right. So there's my first limb off. So we're going to replace these cables, but we're not going to do it yet. Now you can see how much the cables actually pulled through that Yoke system. Now why do people like Oneida bows? They're very smooth to draw. You can shoot them with fingers, no problems. And they're different. People like different things. So next limb's off. So this is what I'm up to. Now the first thing I'm going to work on is getting this timing cable here. This connects together here. This should be tight, and currently it's loose, so I'm going to get a little screwdriver to take that off. So I've got a little bit more work. Now around here on the Yoke cable, that little screw there, we need a screwdriver, and there's a little rub screw on the back just there. We're going to have to tighten up these cables, but I'm going to first off take off the hand grip. I'm going to take these limb bolts off, just to, it's a bit annoying with it. Okay, so I've got with me the head technician for Oneida, who works at Archery Supplies, to give me some help with this rebuild. Because obviously this is only my second rebuild. And she's very good at cleaning your nose too, if you need your nose cleaned. So back to the rebuild. Okay, so I've got my little screwdriver and my big screwdriver. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take off this hand grip, which is just 2 little screws. Now I probably don't need to take this off, but I'm going to do it anyway. So there's the hand grip off. So 2 screws, and there's little, they attach onto there. So the first thing I want to do is I want to fix up this timing cable to see why that happens. So that should be there, that should be in there, that should be. So I reckon this, wow, look how loose that is. Right. So I reckon this has come loose here. So in the timing thing, so let me just, yeah, you can see it's loose. So this grub screw here, the Allen key has come loose. So this is a lock screw just there. And now I'm going to tighten that up. You can see it just feeds in. Oh, there's the bow serial number there too. So, although I don't know what the purpose of the serial number is if Oneida's not going to help you out with stuff, but anyway, each to their own. Right, so these cables, they should work like that. So when you move one end, it moves the other end basically in this same direction. So this end moves like that. So that's working correct. Now I want the tension on these cables to be tight. When I put the grip on, it's actually going to increase the tension this. So I want it tighter than it is currently, but not a lot tighter than what it is at the moment. So I'm just going to pull it there. I'm going to guess that's about right. There. And I'm going to lock that off. Now, like I said, I don't know why this bow did what it did, but the fact that I've now seen 2 do this, so that's that. Now when I put the grip back on, that's going to push down this cable and make this quite tight here. So I'm pretty happy with that tension. Right, so which 2, see these 2 are loose, these 2 cams, they should be rock solid, and these 2 here are rock solid. So here we're going to look at this. Why is this not rock solid? Now we've got a little Allen key on the end here which we loosen off, and I'm so hoping that's it, but I know it's not going to be because my life was never meant to be simple. So each one of these cams, and there's 2 cams, one there, is held in place by Allen key. And if one of those Allen keys comes loose, then you're in trouble. Now, I would think Loctite would be a logical thing to put on these Allen keys, but it doesn't look like they've done that. So, anyway, you're going to see this all come apart. So you're going to see how this whole, you can see that was rock tight. So it's definitely the other one, which is loose. Allen key's out. I'm actually going to take this one fully off here. Now they're actually put in with pressure, so they're a pressure fit as well, but you can see there's a fair bit of movement, so I'm just going to move those apart like so. Now this is the other Allen key just there, and that's the one which is loose. So I'm actually going to take this off and show you what it is and how it's all put together. So there's basically a little spine there, and there's the same shape there. Now these two cams, need to be exactly in alignment. And for me, the problem is lining these up, because I really want to take this side off here. So I'm going to tap this pin out here to enable this one to be put on, because the Allen key on this side is hidden by this wheel. So I'm just going to go to the shed. I'm going to drop this pin out using a hammer and a thing to push this pin out so we can put this back together. So I've got the cams apart, so the two cams apart, and that's what the little axle looks like. You can see them sit, the little grub screw goes into, touches on those two things there. Right, now I've got myself an arrow shaft. This is a 23 thickness and it goes through the holes nicely. So the reason why you use the two holes is to line it up. Right, so let me try and get everything back together. So the first side you want to put on is this side here. And of course I've forgotten which one, so it's always really important to lay it out, and I did when I was at the shop, so but I didn't hear for the video, so it's this one. This one should be there, like so. Right, axle. So you want to line up the axle, so that Allen key there comes into there. Sorry, that Allen key there has got that Allen key there, lines up with that flat spot there. Now that's easier said than done because it's actually a pressure fit. So it's actually really hard to line it all up and get it spot on. So I'm going to loosen off the Allen key first off. But now it's a pressure fit to get it in the rest of the way. So, oh, there you go. So you can see there, I've got the Allen key, it's all flat inside. So there, now I'm going to lock this Allen key back in place. Now the problem I have, if that wasn't exactly spot on with that, you've got a problem. And because you lock this in place, you cannot move it once it's in place. So it actually makes the alignment really, really difficult. The last Oneida I worked on, which like I said took me 2 hours, I did this procedure I did 3 times to get it right. And just fingers crossed I got it right. Now when you put this the timing cable back in, make sure the cables are not crossed at that point there. They need to be pulling apart and not crossed over. So they go like so, crunch. Right, so it goes like so, around there, around here, around there, around there, and around there. So I put this through, and that's basically that done. So now I'm going to put the little timing nut back together. So the timing nut goes through. Now you don't need to do this at this stage, but I just do to keep it all together. Right, so I put that back on, which is all looks simple, but for some reason it wasn't for me. Right, so cables are all back together. Let's get rid of the hammer and the rest of the stuff. So this operates as it should. So now the only thing I've got to do is line up this with that to get it perfect. Oh, and if that was easy, I would be so happy, but it's not. Right, so turn this over. So the key is to have this lined up with the other side. So what I do is I stick the arrow through, and then I'm going to, and the problem is, see, you still get a little bit of movement between these two things. If you've got a slightly thicker outer, I think it's a 2315, it's a little bit better, but I'm hoping that this is. I'm hoping this is right. There, and now I can get pressure on that. There, until the pin is flat. So now this is all one piece. The cams are aligned. I'll just stick the arrow through the two holes. They're aligned nicely. Oh God, this is going so good. I hope it might be painful for you, but trust me, when I've done this 6 times, it's even more painful. Right, so now I'm going to put the little grub screw back in. With the old Oneidas, the ones I used to sell, they didn't have twin cams. They had actually one cam which ran down the middle. So they didn't have this problem. They didn't have this problem. Now in my shop, I'd work on a rubber mat as opposed to a bench which is hard like this. Right, so I'm pretty happy with that. This is all working the way it should be working. The cams are in the right way. Everything's symmetrical. We'll check the other side. Everything's symmetrical. So fingers crossed this is all going to work out. So the thing I'm going to put on now is I'm going to put the grip back on because it puts a bit of tension on the cables. Now I would say these screws are not the best, and I prefer definitely an Allen key screw with them. Okay, so I actually did up the hand grip too tight. It started to pull straight through the grip. So you can see there. Now, the thing I didn't like about this hand grip, you can see the grip, the space there. I was like, that's really crappy. Like that just looks. Now look at the custom grip there. Oh, you still see the gap there. There's a gap on the inside. The custom one's definitely better, but there's still a gap in there, which looks pretty crappy, I think. But anyway, right. So we've got that. Now it doesn't matter if the timing cable, this one's too tight. Not really, you can get wear, but as long as it's fine. So that's basically the bow back together. So now I've got to fit new timing cables. So I've got these ones here. These we're going green. So I'm going to take this screw off here, top and bottom. We're replacing both these. You know, do I sell this as a brand new bow or a second-hand bow when we go to sell it? I sell it as a second-hand bow. For many reasons. One, I don't have to deal with warranty. You can see the cable's been chewed up. Now it's got blue and red. I assume that's meant to tell you the way it fits in. Oh, I don't know. What's the difference? I'm sure there's some sort of color coding. You can see on this one, the red's on one side. This free float when I put it through so it finds its natural position. So I'm not actually going to lock it in. So I've got that one and I'm grabbing this one. Pin screw in here, so it just fits straight in. And that's basically it done. So I get rid of the wood. Crunch. You can see how it slides, the cable, it just slides. In many ways, I prefer working on the old Oneida. The old Oneida is definitely easier to work on. So we're going to put the limb pocket back in, put it on the bow, and lock this in. First thing is, how much tension do I need on these limbs? I need enough to get the string back on the bow. Right. Like so. The back one. Front of the bow, back of the bow. The back one goes around the back here. It's a little bit fiddly, like it's kind of cool, you don't need a bow press, but it's a little bit fiddly. Thing is, when you see the people build these in the factory, they just do it with ease. Unlike myself, who doesn't do this for a living. So back years ago when I was 20, as I try and fit this cable to them, when I was 20, I went to the Oneida factory because I was having problems with supply of the bows. I just wasn't getting them. So I went to a place in New York called, I'm sorry, but I was when I was 20. It was called Syracuse in New York. So I'm only like 20. I'm going to say 23. I'm leaving Australia. Oneida was one of my first dealerships that I had in Australia, and it was a big brand for me. I'd sell more Oneidas than anything else. So I couldn't get these cables in. You can see it just pop out. What a pain. Anyway, I wasn't getting the bows quick enough to me, and I wasn't getting responses from management. So I jumped on a plane and I said, guess what, I'm coming to America. Which is a bit of an expense. So I go to America, to this little country town called Syracuse, little country town. And they kind of showed me around, which was cool. They took me around to local archery shops and local gun shops, and it was such an eye-opener for me, because I go to these gun shops and the guns aren't even locked up. Like, they're just open. Like, when I say open, like glass windows, yeah, glass windows, and basically, yeah, no security. And they said to me, why do we need security? And they kind of looked funny at me, like, what are you thinking? They said, like, everyone owns a gun in this state. They said it's not an issue. Like, no one's going to break in to steal a gun. It's not worth going to jail for. Guns are so cheap. Anyway, they said to me, gun violence in America, when I say in America, in this town called Syracuse, which, I'm going to get the population wrong, but it's actually a pretty big town, is non-existent. They said, like, everyone has guns. So they were like, well, we just don't understand what you're talking about here, because no one's going to break in to steal a gun. In Australia, crime against archery shops, man, always getting broken into. I was getting broken into every month, so I found that rather interesting. Now you can see the cables are kind of wanting to pop out. Anyway, so there's that one done there. So that cable's done now. I'm holding that in place. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to wind up this limb to keep everything in place. Now you'll notice I haven't tied in this yoke cable here. Anyway, so I go to the factory and I'm a bit, I'm 20 odd, I've got no real knowledge about anything, as far as I'm just going there going, look, man, I need bows to be shipped to me because I can't sell unless I've got bows. And they were cool. They were like really, really nice to me, and they gave me a bow. They had a reject bow in the shop, which was a metallic green bow. I'll just put on the battery charger. One's done. So they give me this green target bow. Now the paintwork was amazing, but not good enough to sell in a shop because the paint had defects. So they gave me the bow, which I shot, and some people in my shop sold when I wasn't there. So yeah, that bow was never meant to be sold, but it did. It got sold when I wasn't there. I don't know how much for, because my staff couldn't tell me how much they sold it for. I did see a person shooting it later, and I never asked him. So the bow still exists, but I don't know what happened. But anyway, they sold my bow. I wasn't very impressed, especially from the fact they didn't know how much they sold it for. Okay, so I've got the limb, same process for this one. Anyway, so I go to the Oneida factory. I'll continue the story. I go to the Oneida factory, they show me around town and show me the archery shops, and I think the story was my lack of customer service was the fact I live in Australia, and I just can't jump on the phone and hassle people, which I assume is what happens in America. But when I go to the factory, I'm going like, dude, I need bows. And I don't go, dude, I need bows, but I basically go, dude, I need bows. I cannot sell a product I cannot get. And the owner was great. They go, no problem, we'll look after you. Any more problems, just drop me a line and I'll get it sorted. Anyway, after that, my life with Oneida was fantastic. So well worth the trip, but I'm gonna say it's not worth making a trip, if that makes any sense at all. It is worth meeting the people who own the company. So if you do have problems, they basically help you because they want to sell product. So it is worth meeting the owners, and I often prefer dealing with companies who are family owned. Oh God, I put that one back to front. Because the owner wants to sell the product. That's how they're going to make money. Where often your sales staff, and I'm not saying bad things about sales staff, often the sales staff just, you know, want to have lunch and they want to have a holiday, and dealing with international is I fully understand that dealing with me is much harder than dealing with an American, because you've got to do special forms to export stuff and all that sort of stuff. So I understand it's harder to deal with me than dealing with an American retailer. Anyway, after we went to the American factory, we became the second biggest dealer of Oneida in the world, behind Claude Pollington. And Claude Pollington was the guy who eventually purchased Oneida. So we sold a lot of Oneida bows. They were extremely popular in Australia for bow hunters. Oh God, I look so clumsy doing this. It could be because I am. Cable systems on the old Oneidas were much easier to work on. So Claude Pollington buys Oneida, being the biggest thing. He's got a ranch where you can go and hunt things. So his son takes over the company. And I could never get Oneida after that. I'd see Oneida at the ATA shows and the guy would never talk to me. He was always too busy. Honestly, I would go to the trade booth 10 times when I'm at the ATA show, and the guy was always too busy. He was like, nah, too busy. Young guy with long hair. I'm not talking about his hair anyway. He was always too busy. And then I was the biggest Oneida dealer besides himself, and he was like, no, I'm too busy. Right, okay, so I never got Oneida then. So it wasn't until they basically went broke and Cabela's Bass Pro purchased the brand. I thought, oh, well, let's see if I can do this again. Let's see if I can rekindle the Oneida franchise thing in Australia. And it did work for a bit until I had a problem. And I had problems shipping from America. So with customs, you have to do a customs form for import into Australia. So they had one shipment for me, and I think there was 12 bows in it or something, but they did it as 3 shipments. So when it came into customs, instead of being one shipment of 12 bows, it was 3 separate shipments, but there was no invoice because it was one invoice. So customs was like, nah, that's not good enough. And it was all a bit hard for Oneida, rightly so. I don't know why they shipped it as 3 shipments, but they did. And then after that, I had the problem with this bow. And I couldn't get cables, and I'm like, oh great, another great decision of mine to opt into a bow company who doesn't do service. So whenever I talk about the service that PSE provide, it's because I feel it with a passion. Every time I have a problem, PSE is just like, Stephen, we're going to fix it. And even if it's an old bow, they fix it. And I'm like, oh, thank you, because you're saving my bacon all the time. Oh man, these cables are the worst. There. So the other day when I had to rebuild this guy's bow 3 times, and I had to go through this cold cable rigmarole 3 times, and you're not getting paid for it, it's just like, you gotta do it. It's like, oh man, this... I got friends who own a shop in America. I'm like, oh, you don't sell Oneidas? He's like, no. I'm like, yeah, I know why. I'm like, I don't want to sell them either. But they are cool bows, and if you got paid to work on them, that would be fine, but you don't, because that's the way archery is. And when you've paid $2,000 for a bow and it breaks, it's like, yup, you want it fixed. Even when you pay $100 for a bow, you still want it fixed. Oh, I'm just hoping this works. So I tighten this up now, it gets a bit of pressure on there to hold those cables in place. Making sure the limb's inside the pocket. Oh, I think that's about it. I'm just going to put a bit more tension on that. That's looking pretty good. Now, I haven't locked in this yet. I want to just make sure the tension is balanced on both these cables and both these cables here. So now I'm going to lock this cable in place up the top. The cabling placed on the bottom. Now the G-string cables, now I had a customer of mine get them from G-strings and he said he got them in 2 weeks. I then had another customer of mine get some stuff from G-strings and he said it took him several months. It took me several months to get them out of G-strings. So that's looking pretty good. So all I've got to do now is fit the string to it and I'm in business. So I put the string on this. I then measure the distance from the cam to the string, make it same top and bottom through adjusting the poundage. I lock that orange bolt in place after the distance from there to there and there is identical. And this bow is back together and ready to sell or do something with. And given I won't be getting an Oneida anymore, the question will be, will I keep this for myself or will I do something else a little bit crazy? Now, I'm just going to make sure this is all the same. And you can see it's all the same as the other one. And it looks pretty cool. I like the green cables. And that's the bow back together. That all looks good. So now I've got to fit the string. So I'm going to make a green string for this bow. So I'm going to make a green string for this bow, which will take me about half an hour. And restring it, shoot it, and make sure it's okay. And then I'll decide what I will do with this bow, whether I'll keep it. I do have a couple of other ideas of what I'm going to do. Given that these are the last 2 Oneidas I will ever sell. At this stage. So the blue one is secondhand. It's had some custom stuff and I've got this one which I've just repaired. So, but these are the last 2 Oneidas. So anyway. And then when you put the bow back together, you realize you put the upside down limb on the upside and the bottom limb on the downside. So you'll see there I've got the poundage limb on the top instead of at the bottom. Oh man, and I just don't want to take these cables off again to fix those limbs. I just don't want to do that. I feel like I have to, but I'll probably make the string first. What a pain. I generally don't have that problem at shop because I lay everything out on the bench and I've got a much bigger bench to work on. Anyway, that's the Oneida rebuild. That's the reason why these cams come undone. I'm not sure why they come loose, but they do. And they don't use Loctite, and I didn't use Loctite then to put it back together. So I'm Stephen Hand from Archery Supplies. That's the Oneida, whatever they call it, the Phoenix rebuild. terribly boring, but if you've got one and you've got things going wrong, it's useful because I didn't know anything about it. And when I've had customers with this bow who had things go wrong, they didn't know anything, they couldn't find anything. So anyway, that's the rebuild. Timing cables are very, very rare to ever replace on the Oneidas. So that's the timing cable there, the one which connects these two big round wheels. They are not a wear item. I have replaced them before in the past. They don't take long to replace. I probably should have replaced this one, but I didn't have one in the shop. But yeah, in all the Oneidas I've ever sold, I don't think I've ever replaced a timing, and I would have replaced a timing, but they just don't wear, where I have replaced the cables just through wear. Anyway, I'm pretty happy with that. It did take me about an hour to do. Anyway, I'm Stephen Hand. Enjoy your shooting. The more you shoot, the better you shoot. And if you have an Oneida, I hope it doesn't break. Thank you for watching. Bye.